Hi, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Focal Point AFR Talk, this Tuesday edition. A couple of quick items. You know, there's a war on Christ, a war on Christmas. Here is a school in Massachusetts. They've replaced, first of all, they replaced the Christmas concert with a holiday concert. Now they're replacing that with an anti-bullying program. They're not even going to have a holiday concert. That is too politically incorrect, so now they're just going to have an anti-bullying program in place of their annual holiday concert, which used to be before that a Christmas concert. Senator Pat Leahy sworn in as the President Pro Tem of the United States Senate. This is because Senator Daniel Inouye from Hawaii died yesterday. He was the longest serving senator. And he actually, this is what a lot of people knew. You talk about a trivia question. The line of succession, if the president were to die in office, it goes to the vice president, obviously Joe Biden, then it goes to the Speaker of the House, and then it goes to the Senate Pro Tem, the guy that's kind of the figurehead leading the Senate. And that was Senator Daniel Inouye. Most people didn't know he was third in the line of succession to the presidency, and now Senator Patrick Leahy is now third in line. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Don in Flora, Illinois. Don, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a point about yesterday at the schools whenever the shootings, which was a real tragedy.
Yes, sir.
But I don't hear anybody crying out for all those babies being aborted. And I know there's a silver lining to this because those children will be in heaven. But there's another comment I've got to make. You know, at 9/11, when those guys hijacked those planes and they, with knives and stuff, well, now they've armed the pilots with guns. How many planes have been hijacked since then?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point. And I've got a story in here. Thanks for the call. I appreciate that, Don. And, I was going through the book of Nehemiah yesterday and sharing with you, or Ezekiel rather, where you see the glory of God and his presence slowly, gradually, reluctantly departing from the temple and from the city. It was obviously not something that God wanted to do, but he was being driven from the sanctuary by the rebellion and the idolatry, the injustice, and the bloodshed of the people. That was a specific thing that he said about the things that were driving him from his sanctuary. See if I can find the exact quote. The land is full of blood. And that goes to what our first caller just said. The land is full of blood. And when you raise hands to me in prayer, they're covered with blood, he says in Isaiah 1. I'm not going to listen to prayers that are prayed by people who are extending to me hands that are covered with the blood of innocents. And so Donna's exactly right. All this outrage over what's happened to these 20 children, and we ought to be outraged. That's why I sent out the tweets that I did, got blasted for it. But I'm outraged that we are so callously indifferent to what happens to kindergartners. We got to do something about that. We don't want that ever to happen again. And, Governor Perry, I think that I am a big fan of Governor Perry, and a lot of reasons why. But he was at a Tea Party event last night, and he said, look, I think teachers ought to be armed. He said, I think we ought to let the local districts decide who they want to be armed, but I think that teachers in our schools ought to be armed. So I was Governor Perry, and here is a school official in Texas, David Thweet or Thwet, I don't know how you say his last name, but he is a superintendent of the Herald Independent School District in Wybarger County, and their teachers are armed, locked, and loaded. His teachers are armed and dangerous. This is in a Texas public school district. It can be done, ladies and gentlemen. It can be done. He says this: we give our guardians training in addition to the regular Texas conceal and carry training. I love this. It mainly entails improving accuracy. And, we've often said that before, but that's gun control, hitting what you aim at. And so this superintendent says, man, we practice gun control in our school district. We give them training to improve their accuracy so they can hit what they are shooting at. He says, as educators, we don't have to be police officers and learn about Miranda rights and related procedures. We just have to be accurate. And notice says, look, we're going to be in a situation. We're not going to have time to read somebody's rights. We're going to have to pull the trigger to to protect our children, and we are prepared to do that. There's a gun shop owner down in Austin, Texas. He's offering a discount now to teachers, the same discount that he offers to veterans. It's kind of spooky. You talk about battlefield. I mean, our schools are turning into battlefields, and so he's giving them a discount to arm themselves for the battle. And this superintendent says, look, we are 18 miles and 30 minutes away from the nearest police station. So I love this expression, we are our first responders. She's like, who's the first responder in our situation? Nearest police station, 30 minutes away, 18 miles away. Who are the first responders? We are. We've got to be ready because it's going to take them 30 minutes to get here. By that time, everybody in the school is going to be dead. And he said, I had a police officer tell me one time, 95% of the time we get to the scene late. In other words, they show up after the violence has occurred. They even use in the school district, they use what are called frangible bullets that break apart when they hit the target because they don't want bullets ricocheting off walls and injuring innocent children. The same ammunition, very similar to what air marshals use. Our last caller was talking about air marshals. And he said parents have embraced the Guardian Plan, which is what he calls it, a fact which is evidenced by the transfer rate into the school district. We're a high transfer district, he said, which means only 18% of the students come to the school because they live in the district. The rest transfer in or choose to come here from other districts. So in other words, when parents find out that they can put their kid in a school where the teachers are armed and dangerous, they says, that's where I want my kid. I'm transferring my kid to that school because I know that they are serious about protecting the life and safety and health of my child. Let's go to James, Russellville, Illinois. James, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I've got a comment about the individuals that would like to cut the head off the president of the NRA and kill all the NRA members.
Yeah, that's a guy named Eric Loomis. He's a PhD. He's an assistant professor of history at the University of Rhode Island. He tweeted this out, I want Wayne LaPierre's head on a stick. Anyway, go ahead. James?
Yes.
Yeah, you got a comment? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. My comment is these people kind of forget that these NRA members are probably going to be the first people that would be willing to give their lives to protect other people's children in situations like that. And the NRA promotes gun safety. And like myself, I'm a grandfather, and I started out my grandkids about 5 years old, and they can handle a gun safety-wise better than most adults I've ever been with. And they kind of forget that that's the big thing NRA does. But in other comment I had heard this weekend that kind of got me was a Christian pastor on TV said nobody needs high-capacity clips or guns can shoot more than 10 bullets. And they kind of forget the Constitution was fixed up where nobody would want to come in and invade this country. Back when Japan, that was the biggest thing about Japan, said they would not come in and invade this country because everybody was too well protected.
Yeah. And, you know, I just blanked out on what were you just talking about, James, a minute ago? Because it sparked something in me.
It was talking about the safety.
The clips, the size of the clips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the deal is if you have, and I'm not a gun expert, but I can read. You know, and the gun experts I read say, look, the larger the clip, the more rounds a clip holds, the more chances it'll have to jam. So actually, it can be a problem for the shooter. And they're saying, besides, if you let's say you ban 30-round clips, nobody can have a gun with a 30-round clip. Got to be a maximum of 10. Well, the guy just packs 3 10-round clips. You know, I mean, and it's a matter of a couple of seconds to switch out a clip. So that's a virtually meaningless restriction. All right, James, listen, I appreciate it. And the NRA is about gun safety and responsible gun use. They are a friend of safety and security. And You know, somebody calculated that the number of gun owners there are in the state of Pennsylvania. And by the way, gun sales through the roof. People know that Obama's coming for our guns. Gun sales are through the roof. Colorado got overwhelmed doing background checks. They had to bring in people to work overtime and weekends to process the background gun checks because people now are, legitimately concerned that Barack Obama's coming after their guns. And we played the sound bites yesterday. They want to take the ammo. They want to take guns off the streets. Let's go to, and Pennsylvania would have the largest army in the world. If you brought together all of the gun owners in Pennsylvania, millions of them, it would be the largest army in the world. So somebody's going to have to think twice about invading the state of Pennsylvania. Let's go to Mike, Rapid City, North Dakota. Mike, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I always appreciate your candor. And I just want to say that greeting you gave today for the liberal Democrats was spot on. It was perfect. I loved it. You got to get that on your Facebook page. It's the funniest thing I've heard all week long. That's awesome.
All right. We'll see what we can do about that, Mike. All right. Appreciate that. I don't even know now where I got that thing. I think maybe Debbie sent that to me. My wife might have sent that on to me. So I'll see if I can track that down and we can get that on the Facebook site. So thanks for the call, Mike. And by the way, that University of Rhode Island professor, the one that said he wanted Wayne LaPierre's head on a stick. Remember, these are the guys that fancy themselves the paragons of tolerance. These are the ones that are constantly calling for an elevated tone in our civil discourse, criticizing Sarah Palin for crosshairs on a map. And here's the first thing this guy did is he retweeted. So he didn't write this, but he retweeted it from somebody called a Rude Pundit that said the first blank to say the solution is for elementary school teachers to carry guns needs to get beaten to death. So that's the new tone from this professor of history at the University of Rhode Island. Focal Point AFR Talk back after the news. Stay with us.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk.
Hi, my name is Renan Perdomo. I'm from Honduras. As a child, I was recipient of Operation Christmas Child shoebox. And I just want you to know how powerful it was for me. It changed my life and changed the life of my family too. Because for the first time, I received the gospel there. And on behalf of all the children who received the shoebox, Merry Christmas and thank you for packing the shoebox. God bless you. Gracias por todo.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Peter. With 2 weeks to go before the deadline, the Speaker of the House is offering a backup plan to avoid the fiscal cliff. Correspondent Jerry Bodlander has more.
A day after his latest meeting with the president, Speaker John Boehner remains hopeful a wide-ranging agreement can be reached. But mindful the clock is ticking, he plans to hold a vote that would prevent tax hikes for anybody making less than $1 million a year.
I believe it's important that we protect as many American taxpayers as we can.
Boehner also says the president's latest approach doesn't include enough in spending cuts to go along with tax hikes. The latest White House offer would raise taxes on incomes of more than $400,000, up from $250,000.
Classes have resumed today in most Newtown, Connecticut schools, but Sandy Hook Elementary remains closed.
The district has made plans to send surviving students from Sandy Hook Elementary School to Chalk Hill, a former middle school in the neighboring town of Monroe. Tiny desks that will fit the small students are being taken there. The building has been empty since town schools consolidated last year, and tradesmen are donating their services to get the school ready within a matter of days. Julie Walker, Newtown, Connecticut.
Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy has been sworn in as President Pro Tem of the Senate following the death of Hawaii Senator Daniel Inouye. As the longest-serving Democrat now in the Senate, Leahy moves to third place in line of presidential succession behind Vice President Joe Biden and House Speaker John Boehner. A constitutional rights watchdog is supporting the state of Arizona's law, which requires prospective voters to provide satisfactory evidence of citizenship in order to register to vote. EFN's Chad Groening has more.
The American Civil Rights Union has filed a brief with the United States Supreme Court in support of Arizona's Proposition 200 voter ID initiative that was passed by Arizona voters in 2004. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed a district court ruling that had upheld the state's law, claiming that federal election law preempts Prop 200 in regard to federal elections. Peter Ferrara is general counsel with the ACRU.
The Constitution grants the states the right to determine who is eligible to vote. In fact, the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over that under the U.S. Constitution. So it's very important to protect people's constitutional rights. And that's why we spoke up and got involved in this case.
Ferrara says the Ninth Circuit has had a history of judicial activism.
That's a polite term for what they do in the Ninth Circuit. They just make it up, is what they really do. They're not interested in applying the law. They're not interested in upholding their oaths of office. They just make it up, and it's another abuse of the American people and of our Constitution, the way they behave.
Ferrara says oral arguments on this case are set for early next year, with a decision expected before summer. I'm Chad Groening.
Maryland school officials installing biometric palm readers in school lunch lines have backed off using them after a constitutional advocacy organization expressed privacy concerns. EFN's Bob Kellogg reports.
The principal of Carroll County Public Schools announced installation of the scanners would stop after the Rutherford Institute filed a complaint. Institute President John Whitehead says many parents are concerned about such surveillance policies.
You know, there are a lot of parents that object to that. They don't like the idea of being scanned. A lot of religious folks are arguing that those type of things are like the mark of the beast, and they don't like it.
Additionally, he says these programs are ultimately aimed at enriching the schools and large corporations.
In all these cases dealing with electronic devices, what we're finding out is the large corporations in America, AT&T, IBM, are making chips and devices, and they lobby the schools to use these things, and they make a lot of money off them. And who pays for it? The American taxpayer.
One corporation envisions expanding such surveillance technology from the lunchroom to other school areas, such as the front door, classrooms, the library, buses, and athletic events as well. I'm Bob Kellogg.
And the nation's home builders are increasingly confident based on the latest survey from their trade group. The National Association of Home Builders Sentiment Index increased to 47. Up 2 points from a revised November reading. That's the highest reading since April 2006, which was before the housing bubble burst. And stocks have been slightly higher on Wall Street today. American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Tyndale House, a publisher of Christian books, brings you Heaven by Randy Alcorn. Heaven is a book where Randy Alcorn details for readers what heaven will be like, based completely on biblical information.